Welcome back to the Old Colony Cast podcast about all things Plymouth and surrounding areas. I am here with Hanna.
Hello.
Who just, is like a superhero. She was just like solving emergencies, running around, taking care of business.
Yeah, if you could call him that.
And we are also here with Fish, another co-host. And so we have talked extensively about Plymouth Rock, probably more than most people do. And whether we talked about it or not on this podcast, we were just kind of trying to figure out whether we had mentioned it or not. But for the past few years, there has been can we say urban legend?
Like a prank, but like to us.
But we're not even sure if it happened, though, so I feel it's a little urban legendy.
Yes, I would agree.
So as the legend goes, on July 3rd, someone will sneak into the area where the Plymouth Rock is displayed and sneak in a second mock rock? Mock rock?
Yeah, mock rock. Life-size mock.
Yeah. So Hanna was like, hey, we should stake that out and kind of like talk to that person. So we met up on July 3rd, and we met up with a eyewitness named Alex. Now, to be fair, and even to Alex's credit, he's like, listen, I was drinking a lot that night.
Yeah, are we going to put in his little interview?
Yeah, so we are going to cut now live to Alex telling us the story.
So we are here with
Alex. My name's Alex.
And Alex, you have literally seen the second Plymouth Rock.
So as far as I know, there's two. There could be even more, for all we know. But 1/3 of July, after a long day of drinking, I proceeded to go out drinking that night even. So that is a disclaimer to this story. So it's a little blurry.
Yeah.
So it starts with a friend coming to find me asleep on the old courthouse steps.
Okay.
This is one of the drunkest I've ever been.
So this is the part of the myth of the second rock where you're like, all right, to be fair, I was really, really drunk.
Yes.
All right.
Like, I didn't even believe this story for quite some time. Up to a degree, anyway. So he finds me on the courthouse steps. He gets me walking around. We're walking around downtown, sober me up. Now I'm starting to come to a bit. And I'm like, I gotta take a pee. You know, I gotta empty the tank, the whole thing.
Sometimes you have to tinkle.
You do, you know, especially after that much drinking. So we make our way down by the rock.
Yeah, which we are literally
standing
about a football field.
Yeah, about 100 yards away from.
Solid. And I, in my head, am being a prick, and I'm like, I'm gonna go pee on the rock. It's gotta be roughly after bar close, maybe 1:30 in the morning. And I go over there, and I'm just going to pee from the upper bay, and I see that there's two rocks. And I didn't believe it at first, so I said, you know what, I'm going to prove this to myself. So I jumped down.
So did you think you were seeing things?
I thought I was seeing doubles. Yeah.
All right, okay.
I thought I was seeing doubles.
We've all been there.
You know, it happens.
Yeah, sure.
And so I jumped down, and I stand on one, and proceed to pee on the other.
Which one did you stand on?
The one on the right, which I believe was the real one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the real one.
And I pee on it, and I'm like, this is happening. There's two rocks. I'm watching my pee splash off of it. Like, you know, I physically have proven it to myself. Now my buddy's like, Alex, we gotta go. There's somebody walking up. Get out of there. So I hop out, and we proceed to just meander around downtown.
Yeah.
Now, the rest of the night goes back into closer to a brownout, and I wake up in the morning, and I'm like, I hit him up, and I was like, what happened last night? Was there two Plymouth Rocks? That's like the only thing I remember.
Did I pee on rocks?
He
I remember doing
confirms
that.
it.
Yeah.
And so I proceed to tell the story for, I don't know, the remainder of that summer, the winter into the spring. And I find out that it's the following year, we're down drinking at Pillory.
Yep.
Now, where the park rangers kind of walk around and hang out.
Sure, yeah.
I'm telling the story. My buddy says bullshit for the 100th time. And you know, I was so drunk, I wasn't 100%
and you're like,
sure.
No, I'm sure.
So, well, the only thing I had was the confirmation of the friend that brought me back to life.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't make it up. I saw no reason for him to anyway. So my friend that calls bullshit goes over to the park ranger and says, will you please tell him that there's no such thing as 2 Plymouth Rocks? And he goes, well, funny thing is. And he proceeds to say, for about 3 years in a row now, somebody has been showing up on the 3rd and placing a fake rock down there in hopes that nobody catches it by the morning of the 4th. And there's a big to-do about it come the 4th of July parade, the whole 9. And he asked me, was it me? And I tell him, no, I was the one that ran from it on the 3rd because I was peeing on it. He's like, well, do you know anything about it? I was like, just what I'm telling you now. And I guess that, like I said, it was consecutive for 3 years. I'm going to guess that it's happened since. This was probably 2016-ish.
Right. So 3 years would be 2019. So, yeah.
So it's got to still be going.
So we're out here. I mean, it's COVID time, so who knows? But we're going to camp out here.
What a better time to do it.
I know, right? Because no one's
going to catch them,
right,
except for you.
Except for us. So we're going to hang out here for a while and see what happens.
Stick it up.
As long as it doesn't, really rain. Because, I don't want to get soggy.
Right.
No, definitely.
So Hanna actually, I sent her the photo of the picture in the binder that the park ranger had.
Yeah.
And it was physical proof to my eyes at that point, too. So it's been confirmed.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll get some more information.
So.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
So that was Alex, and he explained to us how he saw the rock. Again, he himself admits that he was not incapacitated, but
having a very good evening.
He was under the influence. So even he himself was kind of like, I'm pretty sure it happened.
But he did get, a witness from the people who actually work the area, that park from the...
Correct. So we decided to take it upon ourselves, being the hard news, cutting edge news program that the Old Colony Cast is, to stake out the Plymouth Rock on July 3rd and see what would happen. We had a great time. I had so much fun that night.
Yeah, if anything, it was just a good bonding experience.
Yeah, nothing noteworthy happened at all, other than Bruno Mars tried to burn down Plymouth Rock.
Yeah,
which is a total inside joke, but not much happened. It was uneventful to say the least.
So you guys, we disbanded at 11:30. We made it a few hours.
I was getting pretty soggy, and I'm old, so I was sleepy.
Let's set the scene. It was
a dark and stormy night.
It was a pretty dreary Massachusetts coastal evening.
Oh
and
God, it was. Yeah,
we were essentially in a cloud. The air was wet, and then it started to actually rain.
Yes.
But when you guys left, I was parked right facing the rock, so I was like, well, maybe I'll just hang out for a little bit longer in my car. So I hung out until 12:45 in the morning, and there was no one. I saw some people stop in their car and hang out for a little bit, but I didn't see anything.
Well, we saw several cars drive by kind of suspiciously.
Yes, with covered trunks, not trunks.
Yeah, trucks with covered flatbeds. Kind of.
Yeah. Covered trunks.
Yeah, but there
lots of cars with covered trunks.
I think all the cars have covered trunks.
You could say.
But not a lot was happening. It was not a lot was happening, but there were people there constantly while we were there.
Yes,
it wasn't that quiet.
And the rascal behavior going on downtown with setting off fireworks randomly.
Yeah, Bruno Mars. It
drew out a lot of attention, unwanted attention, that I think if someone was driving by to do it, they were deciding not to do it.
I could see that, because it now is one of my most favorite Plymouth stories, and I will recap it for our listeners. So Bruno Mars was there, not someone who looked like Bruno Mars, the actual Bruno Mars. and he was setting off fireworks. Like I would say, like he would set one off and like walk 50 yards and set another one off.
Yeah, give or take.
So he ended up setting one off right next to Plymouth Rock. And it was a fairly large thing, maybe 12 inches in diameter. So there's a bunch of little like rockets in it, and they all took off. And so
they were the coolest fireworks of the night.
Oh, they were fun, yeah. And we watched it. We watched it, whatever, and then we sat and talked for a while. And like maybe 5 or 10 minutes later, Fish is like, "Oh, hey, that firework is now smoking." We all looked down. We're like, "Yep, it is." Started talking again. 5 or 10 minutes later, Fish is like, "Oh, great, now it's on fire." And then we're all like, "Oh, yeah, it's on fire." And I would compare it to if you took a small size grocery store bag of paper and lit it on fire. It wasn't anywhere near a big fire, but it was.
It lasted longer than I thought.
It was noticeable.
It was certainly on fire. Yeah.
Yeah. And so a cruiser happened to be going by, stopped. The cop got out and started to stand by the fire. And I'm like, oh, he's going to stand by the fire and wait till it goes out and take care of whatever. Because, it was a legit fire, but not like, oh, my God, the town's in danger kind of fire.
Right.
But that said officer called the fire department, and we saw a fire truck pull up. And by the time the fire truck got there, the firefighter got out, looked at what was now left of the fire, and kind of stomped it out with his foot.
Yeah, seemed
which is way less funnier when I explain it, because it was hysterical at the time.
We were talking about it. I was telling the story, and you don't really think about it either, but there's like a whole probably like a union agreement too, right? Like you have to call like the appropriate whatever.
I guess, but come on.
It felt silly. It did. It felt silly.
It was very silly. I mean,
a full fire truck with
full fire truck, 3 guys.
Yeah.
I literally could have put that out with like 3 beers and a full bladder.
There you go.
It was not a very big fire. So that's kind of like the high point of the night, but then the cruiser was hanging out, so we're like, oh, the cop's sitting there. No one's going to like do anything if the cop is sitting there. And that's kind of the time things are wrapping up.
Yep. So we did not catch the person. I will say, I was trying to explain to people what we were doing, and they were like, "You're trying to stop him?" And I'm like, No,
why? We're not there to stop him. We just wanted to see it happen.
Yeah. We just want to see it happen. We want to meet them. We would have arranged to disguise their voice.
I kind of want to just know their reason why.
Yeah. Same.
Like, I'm totally down for it. Keep doing it, man. But, like, why? And like,
we forgot to mention, too, it was high tide, which could have something to do with it.
So the rock was basically underwater.
So, maybe next year.
Yeah.
The annual 3rd of July stakeout.
The old Colony Cast stakeout.
At some point we'll live stream it.
Oh, right? We could probably make that happen.
Yeah.
All right. So, Hannah, we are here not just to talk about July 3rd, but to talk about turtles.
Turtles. Specifically the ones the one in the city of Worcester. And the boy it belongs to.
So this... Oh, I'm sorry. Just to give like a little preference, we were running a comedy show on our Facebook feed, and someone brought this up and started talking about it. I'm like, this is fascinating. So I felt like this was something that we need to cover. So, sorry, go ahead.
That's okay.
That was really being interrupted. I'll do it again.
Don't worry about it. So... Before we talk about this statue, I think it's important for anyone who doesn't live in Massachusetts, or even for the people who do live in Massachusetts, to understand why we call Worcester Worcester.
Oh, wait.
And not
why do we call... Why?
Well, no, this is really just a lesson in a Boston accent.
I thought you meant it was like some like deep-seated reference. Cause I'm like, I don't know that
Definitely
story.
not. It was just named like after another town in England.
So we just say things wrong. I know that.
Yeah.
I know we say things wrong. Yeah.
I know we do, but a lot of people look at Worcester and they're like, "What about Dorchester? We say it Dorchester and not Dusta." And I'm like, "No, because there's a couple extra letters." But
Yeah.
let me, for anyone who doesn't understand it, the spell. This is probably so boring, but I think it's really interesting.
Go on, because
So I'm gonna tell you guys.
I say everything wrong. So
It's Worcestor, I think, right? And,
Worcester.
ER, I think.
ER, sorry.
So
Spell-
it's Worcester.
So technically it's Worcester,
Okay.
right? But now we have a silent letter, a vowel, in between two S sounds. And then before those two S sounds with the silent letter, we have a W, an OR, which we don't pronounce the R.
Right. So it's Worcester.
Worcester. It's just,
Worcester.
yeah. So
I was at Worcester hanging out with Sully.
I just want to make sure everyone understands, because I feel like some people are like, it doesn't make any sense. And I'm like, if you understand the way we pronounce things and the spelling of things, it actually does make sense. It's stupid and it's wrong, but that's okay.
We're super lazy and moderately drunk. So
Yes.
It's Worcester.
I, for the longest time, thought there was no R in the word margarita. M-A-G.
Oh, it's just a margarita.
Margarita.
Yep.
All right. I can see that.
It's what you know.
It's a margarita.
So, a margarita.
Not to be confused with your father's garita.
I literally had no clue.
Dad garita.
So I have actually seen this fountain before, or statue, as it's kind of more of a statue now, than an actual fountain, but it's a weird one. If you haven't seen it yet,
Very strange.
it's a bronze statue of a pan-like or just a nude boy who is trying to catch a sea turtle.
But the reason why it came up was because the posing of said boy/pan creature and the turtle looks horribly obscene, like he's doing something unnatural to the turtle.
Definitely. I'm not going to disagree.
And depending on your view, too, like the angles where it's all at. So.
Yeah. So I found just some interesting history behind this statue, or what was conceived to be a fountain at the time. So its basin is actually pink granite, and it was made a little bit larger in scale than it is now, and it was supposed to be a fountain for horses, dogs, and people.
Do we know if that granite came from New Hampshire?
No, they didn't say where. Granite's all over the place, though.
Yeah, but New Hampshire's the granite state. So.
It is, but we have a lot here, too.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah. That would be fun. I mean, the person who made it, he's I think he's from New York, but also Connecticut, and lived in Massachusetts for a short time. So I don't know if he got it from somewhere he lived. I don't know. There wasn't a lot of details on the granite purchasing part, but so it actually was commissioned in 1905 because the death of a prominent lawyer from many years ago, his daughter wanted to commemorate him, and she bequeathed $5,000 onto the city of Worcester in order to have something built in memorial for her father, who was Samuel Burnside.
The city of Worcester.
The Worcester.
Worcester.
So Harriet F. Burnside, when she died, it was like in her will to have something set up in a public space for her dad. And I guess he was a justice at some point, too, for the district.
Mm-hmm.
So, he did a lot for the community. There wasn't a whole lot about him, but they were a very wealthy, prominent family. And they originally wanted it in the central square of Worcester, which I don't know exactly where that is geographically compared to where it is now. Not super far. But a lot of people didn't like it because it was actually in the way of the farmers market that would take place there.
So it's been moved since it started?
Yes, it got moved to where it is now in 1969.
All right.
Which is, where is it now? On the southeast corner of the Worcester Common. So it's different parks. They really picked it up and moved it. And when they moved it, that's when they downsized it a little bit because the need for...
Is that when it became a statue and not a fountain?
I don't know when it became not a fountain, but pretty much it got placed in Worcester. It was actually like presented in 1912, right when like the horse and buggy were kind of going out of style. But the reason for it to be a fountain was to give water to
horses. Yeah.
Mostly, yeah. So by the time they moved it to the more popular location that made all the farmers mad, they were like, this doesn't even make sense. We don't even use horses that much anymore. And then they didn't get it moved until like 50 years later. So definitely, I don't think it was a fountain at that point anymore. They were already, like, they had it up to there with that fountain when it first got dropped. So the designer of the basin for it was the same person, Henry Bacon, who designed, or one of the designers for the Lincoln Memorial.
Oh, no way, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
He did a couple other things, I think, in the D.C. area, but he's more known for the Lincoln Memorial.
So, funny story about the Lincoln Memorial.
Mm-hmm.
Little side story. Last time I was there, I had just gotten out of a cast, so I was barely able to walk, and we hiked up those stairs. There's a bookstore in the Lincoln Memorial.
That's interesting.
You go in, and
it's weird.
Like you in the front, you got Lincoln sitting there facing you, and kind of
to your right,
off to your right, kind of like tucked in, like off to the right of the entrance, is a little gift shop, which is exactly what you'd expect in a giant memorial to a founding father.
It was very strange.
It was very bizarre.
I've never been. Maybe one day.
When the old colony cast goes to D.C.
In another 4 years, depending on...
Yeah.
Anyway, so before we get into the other artists, because it was like a team effort, just a fun little things about what the Turtle Boy, what they call it now. It's a Burnside Fountain, but it's lovingly
everyone
known as
calls it Turtle Boy.
Yeah, exactly, Turtle Boy statue, given by locals, and it's used as like a when you're out giving directions, like. It's one of those. Oh, if you go up.
Oh, you go up to Turtle Boy and take a left until you get to Dunkin' Donuts, and then you turn. That kind of thing. Yes,
a children's book was actually written around the statue, like the idea of the statue. It's called "The Cloud Bird" by Margaret C. Gretschel, and it's about a boy and a turtle.
Humping a turtle?
No. She doesn't get into that, but she's just like...
All right.
It's a children's book. He's like trying... I think the idea was he's like helping the turtle or following the turtle.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
He's helping the turtle.
Sure is.
Wormtown Brewing Company sells a Turtle Boy Blueberry Ale. Sorry. It's the unofficial mascot of Worcester. And they dress it up on holidays, kind of like the ducks in the Boston Common.
So when we were talking about him the other day, someone noted that he was wearing a mask. So he is appropriately socially distancing and preventing coronavirus by wearing a mask. So shout out to Turtle Boy.
Yep. He's doing all the right things.
He is.
It has been known, so I guess a college teacher from Massachusetts. I forget what college, but she did a study on the statue for one of her classes, and people had to express or explain what they thought the symbolism or what it stood for. And one of the students said it's Worcester's monument to bestiality. And then I think the intended answer is innocence, joy, and rebirth.
Sure.
Maybe.
All right.
Yeah, I totally see that. Yeah.
I'm just going to say the turtle looks scared.
It's just a very bad, from an artist standpoint, it is a very bad layout. Because if you're doing some sort of sculpting, you should stop and step back and take a look at your work. And I feel like at any time, if you actually did that from the sculpture, you'd be like, oh no, that's not okay.
I feel like Charles Harvey did that a lot. We'll talk about that momentarily. In 2010, it was named one of WAAF's Hillman's 25 greatest places to go in Mass, which I was like, well, there's so many better places to go.
In the top 25?
Yeah.
That's disappointing. I could think of at least 27 more places than that.
Literally just within a 3-mile radius of me, I feel like I got a good bunch.
Yeah.
Anyway, to each their own. In that same year, it was also nominated Worst Public Art in New England.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's questionable.
When they did move it in 1969, they looked at the condition of it and the surrounding area and really what it was. Actually, they were assessing a lot of public statues in Worcester at the time, and it needs about $40,000 to $60,000 worth of repairs.
Oh, Jesus.
I'm sorry, you glitched out a little bit. Did you say that was in 1969?
Yeah. I don't think it was exactly 1969. It was a little after they moved it.
I feel like if you want to avoid bestiality references, you should not be moving it in 1969. I feel like 1967 or 1970 would have been better.
Oh, gotcha. What are you thinking? I see what you did there.
Yeah, move it 1 year.
You sure? 1970, I think they assessed it.
There you go.
So in 2012, it was its 100th anniversary because it was gifted in 1912, fully finished in 1912. Stolen in 1970. That one I'm
Shut
not
up,
changing.
really?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
It was recovered not very long after. There wasn't a whole lot on it, really, but it was.
Because this
recovered.
large, right? It's not.
Oh, yes. It's like life. It's like a life-size human and
life-size turtle.
I mean, depends on the turtle. Yeah, I guess it's technically life-size. It's not like a leatherback.
Yeah.
It's like a green turtle, I think. A green sea turtle. So it was not put back until 1972. So there were actually 2 full years that they just got lazy and didn't put it back up, and the basin to it was there.
So it was returned, but they were like, yeah, we'll get to it.
Yes. That's my level of procrastination for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes. And there was another attempt, they think, to steal it in 2004 because it was knocked off of the basin.
Mm-hmm.
But they just found it. It didn't actually get stolen. I don't know if someone could have just been goofing around and made a mistake.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's necessarily proof that someone was about to steal it, right?
Just because someone climbs down onto Plymouth Rock, Hanna, doesn't mean they're trying to steal Plymouth Rock.
That's correct.
Sometimes they're just down there to see if it's the right rock.
I've been saying that for years. So the original commission was intended for Daniel Chester French. So he was too busy.
Is that his name or his nationality?
His name.
All right.
I did get confused with that.
It's like Daniel Chester, French.
He's French.
All right.
He was too busy. He's actually helping on the Lincoln Memorial as well. But he had someone in mind that he thought would be great for it and thought he was a very up-and-coming talented artist. And his name is Charles Y. Harvey, the graduate of the American Academy in Rome.
He's like, oh my God, I have a buddy of mine who can totally do this. He's not crazy at all.
No, not even a little. So it wasn't too long into him sculpting it was fully his idea of what to do. So like he came up with that concept, that he started doubting himself and feeling like he was inadequate and not doing a great job, which I guess was reportedly common from those who went to school with him.
I feel like that's common from artists all over.
Yeah, they thought he had a little bit worse of it though. Like, yeah, they were like, he's really hard on himself.
So it's not your standard like, oh, this isn't right.
Yeah. So about a week after carving it, the statue started talking to him. So that's what we know, at least. That's what he explained. Somewhere at some point he told people that the statue was talking to him, and the voices that he was hearing were telling him to kill himself, and they gave him a date to kill himself on too.
Oh, okay. Well, now this, I've heard the story, and I have one very, very important question.
Mm-hmm.
Was it the boy or was it the turtle?
It does not say. However, it specifically says voices.
I'm a turtle. Go kill yourself on the 17th.
I think they were both doing it, honestly. That's voices.
Yeah. I suppose when you're like that kind of incoherent, then it really doesn't matter.
Right. So yeah, he's hearing voices from inanimate objects that are telling him to end his life, unfortunately. So it's very likely that he went undiagnosed because of the time, right? It's early 1900s, that he went undiagnosed with some sort of bipolar, manic, or even schizophrenia. I'm not a doctor, I'm not going to diagnose it, but he very likely suffered from something of the sort.
Oh, definitely. But like, how bad do you have to be undiagnosed when you're like, oh, the sculpture is talking to me?
Well, I mean, think about the time.
Do you think he told people, or?
Yeah, yes, he did, because this is stuff that was like reported from friends like that he had spoken to. I don't think it was something like, hey, I was actually just talking to my statue last night, and like, I don't think it was like that. I think he probably gave some indications.
And he totally thinks the Bruins are winning on Thursday.
Yeah, he told me to bet on it, all of it. So, I mean, the voices became very specific. So the date, which this part was weird because I kept finding two dates. January 27th.
Well, obviously, because the turtle told him one date and the boy told him another date.
That's probably true.
Yeah, don't be ridiculous.
January 29th, 1912. So the more common one was the 27th, but I did find the 29th somewhere, and I don't know if it's literally an editing issue with some articles that I ran into, but either way, they gave him the date, and it was, in fact, on that date that he went to the Bronx Park in New York and took 2 razor blades and slit his own throat, and he was found there by, like, pedestrians.
Which is super bonkers. Like, that's sorry to use a colloquialism, but that's crazy.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like unfortunate for sure, and it left me with a lot of questions because, like, what you're asking, like, who did he tell? Who did he talk to? Given the time that this happened, mental illness was not what it is known for today. Like, it's not addressed like it is today.
Oh, no. This is like the time where, a lot of people use the term hysteria without realizing what it means. And hysteria was a reference to basically boisterous women or women who didn't listen. And the diagnosis was that their is it their uterus was moving around?
Yes.
So like, our understanding of mental health was not where it's at.
Did you know that's where we got hysterectomies from?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Get that thing out of there. It's not doing anything good.
It's just moving around and making her bossy. So it's when you look back at it, like our idea of mental health was just not good, and so I'm sure this guy had no chance whatsoever.
No, and Harvey, who was recommended by Daniel French, like I said, one of their mentors, it looked like he actually was quoted as saying, it was Augustus Saint Gaudens, said that Harvey will one day be great if he ever can learn to manage the delicate temperament of his. Like
that dude's crazy.
Literally.
Yeah.
Like, he'll be great if he could ever figure out what's going on in his head. Poor guy.
But I feel like that's a common thread for artists and creative types is the struggle with mental health. I don't think that's uncommon, but it's just unfortunate that it was at a time where they're like, oh, you got demons in you, and go drink this soup and throw up and stick some leeches on you and you'll be fine.
Yeah, let's bleed it out.
Yeah, that was kind of the answer for everything.
He's got bad blood. Get it out of there.
Yeah.
So after he died, an old classmate of his who studied at the same school that he went to for art, Sherry Fry, she ended up completing it in 1912. If I read it all correctly, it looks like he completed the full sculpture piece of clay and it just needed to be bronzed, or was very close to completing it. So
he at least completed the mouth because it was talking to him.
Yeah, I'm sure that might have been the first thing he figured out.
So the moral of the story is, if you're doing a sculpture, do the mouth last.
Definitely.
Yeah.
On both animal and
yeah.
It was, like I said, difficult to find firsthand accounts of this. One of the reasons why that it stood out the most, when they presented the city with the statue, there was not like a ceremony for it, probably because the artist committed suicide or completed suicide
in a very brutal way.
Definitely. And they didn't want to. So also back in that day, a little bit more strict on religious beliefs, and they likely thought, or it wasn't even a likely thought, the mayor didn't want to create a statement for someone who had killed themselves. Like, he was a sinner, so they weren't going to make it.
Oh, right. He didn't want to, like, that guy's no good, so let's not give him more press.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So not only was he completely misunderstood in life, most likely, he was also, like, shorthanded when it came to the piece of work that it's really his, like, only known piece of work, like, more popularly known piece of work.
Hanna, people know about the Lincoln Memorial or Monument. Yeah.
He was not the one that worked on that.
Oh. I thought you said he did.
No.
Oh, I misunderstood. Sorry.
Andy.
Sorry, man. Like, you said he worked on the Lincoln Monument. I was listening.
Daniel French. He did just the basin, and Charles Harvey did the sculpture.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So the Lincoln Memorial guy did the part that's not there anymore.
No, it's still there. They just downsized it.
All right.
It's not functioning.
Okay.
So I did come across what I can only describe as fan fiction about this event.
Whoa, really?
Yes.
This is sketchy at best.
Wait, when you say came across, you don't mean wrote, do you?
No, I'm more just the fan fiction part, being like, this is never a good thing.
No, of course not. It was so like as not reliable of a source. Lovely job, whoever wrote it. It's a blog. It's called like The True Story of Turtle Boy. I wish I got the name.
If you don't put true, it's not real.
I could not take any of that grain of salt. I left that blog with a grain of salt. So
this is a salty story. Go on.
It describes Charles Harvey inviting his friends over, who are the four most mentioned artists in here. Sherry Fry, who helped complete it after he died, and Daniel French, I believe, the other guy who created the basin for it. And they're having a conversation at his studio, and he's like, "This is it. Isn't it great, guys? I'm going to give you a really loose wrap-up of the story."
Can you do it? So listen, Hamilton is really popular because it's on Disney Plus right now. Can you give this story to us in a rap format?
I definitely can't. So Charles Harvey is presenting them the statue, and he's like, "What do you think, guys?" And they are looking at it like, "Oh wow,
snap!
It's beautiful. This is some of your finest work. People will talk about you forever."
It doesn't look like that boy's doing horrible things to the turtle.
And then it's like, and Sherry Fry in her head thinks, "Oh my God, he's not doing that to that turtle." And then Daniel French, under his breath, goes, "Oh gosh, how can we put this out in the public?" And like, just really weird, like a conversation. There's no way anyone knows this conversation happened. It's the only blog I found about it. I was like, this is the weird.
So there's no actual evidence, but there's the implications that from day one, people were like, this is inappropriate.
Yeah, and that maybe not day one, obviously, but once the figures were there, and that people supported his artistic drive, but not his vision, which I'm sure crushed him. So we're
definitely gonna have to include pictures of this thing because
yes, I'm definitely going out on a limb here, and I'm sorry if that blogger is 100% right, and that is his great grandmother, and I am just crediting his whole like family story right now or something. It didn't seem like they were related. It definitely looked like fan fiction. But it was interesting nonetheless. I think it really put you in like the mindset of what everyone else might have been thinking at the time.
And today and tomorrow.
And yes.
Yeah. Because that's how everyone in Worcester looks at this thing. It's like, ooh, that's not okay.
I mean, I think my notes are particularly more serial killer-esque than they have ever been than today.
Which
and
is saying a lot considering you've done at least 2 murders. So.
Well, that's reassuring. Can we see proof of Donnie's life again?
He's upstairs.
Yeah, sure he is. Yeah. So for our listeners, Donnie is Hannah's husband, who she has, quote unquote, not killed.
No.
And buried in some shallow grave somewhere.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
Probably not.
So she says. Hanna loves murder.
I'm a fan of true crime stories, not of murder.
And Donnie's fine. We saw him like 45 minutes ago.
Yes.
Walk by. So
he did walk by.
You have an alibi for today. For now.
Thank goodness.
So that's a crazy story. And I think the thing that caught my attention the most in the beginning was that the statue talked to him. And my first question was it the turtle or the boy?
I mean, I'm really betting on both.
See, I feel like it's a turtle. I feel like the turtle definitely spoke to him.
I don't know. I think both. I got to.
So for our listeners can chime in and send us feedback either via email or comment. Was it the turtle or the boy that spoke to the sculptor and told him to do the deed? But yeah, that's a very cool. I feel like if you live in Worcester, it is a known thing if you live outside of Worcester. I'd never heard of this thing until about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I've seen it, and I honestly, I don't know. Plymouth has some weird statues, so I wasn't even. Is that what I
There's weird
looked
statues all over the place. Like, that didn't surprise me. It was more just
the story?
why a
of it?
turtle? Like that makes no. Like, if it was a lobster, I'd be like, okay, that makes sense. Or a whale.
In Worcester?
Yeah, like the turtle was what was very confusing to me.
Yeah, I don't know. It's true. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. I can't do anything about it.
We're not asking you to, man.
I don't know what you want from me. No.
Very little. that is
Okay.
that is the high bar for this show. Very little.
So, yeah, I mean, definitely an interesting person. And I wish there was more out there from him. Because
Yeah.
I'd be interested to see what other...
Oh, I'd really like to see what else he works on. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it'd be very weird.
That's what I was
Whenever
thinking.
he worked on the Lincoln Memorial, and it turned out to be someone else. I was a little disappointed, but I gotta say, still cool.
Definitely. I know. I found a page that looked like it on Etsy that looked like it had sold a couple pieces of his art, but they weren't there anymore, so I couldn't see it.
Oh,
Not
weird.
Etsy, eBay. Is that one? Yeah, eBay. I
Well,
think.
either one. So. Oh, so if you also have pictures of his artwork, man, like post it in Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and tag Old Colony Cast because we'd love to see it. I think that's pretty much it. So
I think so.
yeah, so if you guys have suggestions for, because this was kind of a suggestion. A friend of mine was like, "This is a weird statue. You should talk about it." So if you have suggestions, email oldcolonycast@gmail.com. You can find us on all the social medias at Old Colony Cast. And I am Andy, and I am here with Fish.
And me, Hannah.
I was waiting for Fish to like say things.
Sorry,
I
didn't
wasn't
know what to
leaving
say.
you out, Hannah. Come on, man. Like,
I'm sorry, I didn't realize I was being set up for a line.
So I'm here with Fish.
Yeah, you are.
Jesus. And Hannah.
It's me.
And so for all your information as far as Plymouth and all things surrounding areas, and if you need us to do a stakeout and like spy on your monument, by all means reach out to us. We'd love to do that. I think that's about it. So 4th is over. Have a great summer. We'll see you on the next episode. And I think here's where we stop talking. Thanks for listening to the podcast. You can find us on all social medias at Inebri-art, except for Instagram, we're at Inebri-art6. You can email us with your questions, complaints, and whatnot at Inebri-art@yahoo.com. And if you're looking for more podcasts, you can check out the other podcasts on our network, Retro Redoctopus, America's Hometown Horror, and, of course, Bar Talk, Old Colony, and Inebri-art Podcast, the original. So check those out and subscribe and comment so we can reach more people. And thanks for listening.